Come with me to the North Country, where the eagles fly. Sail with Superior, hike with Hiawatha. Come set your course, experience the North.
On today's show, we're going to be staying at the Northern Experience Lodge in Manistique, Michigan. While we're here, we're going to be covering a fair amount of territory, going to all points of the compass, all within a day's travel of our lodge. Now, what we wanted to accomplish was to find fun and interesting things to do, places where people could go, enjoy themselves, and then return back here in the evening. So what we did was put together a variety of stops that we think are worth visiting when you stay here in Manistique. Either way, it's an added bonus to any vacation.
Production of this program is made possible in part by Superior Log Homes, combining yesterday's authentic methods with today's modern construction techniques. The city of Manistique lies along the northern shores of Lake Michigan. The largest city in Schoolcraft County, Manistique is the county seat and the primary business center for the county. Native Indian tribes populated this area well before the first European exploration in the late 1600s. The name Manistique itself is derived from the original Indian word describing the reddish-brown color of the river which runs through the town. Indian lore is present in several points of interest near the city, including the mysterious and magical Kitchity-Kippy, the Big Spring. This is the site of Michigan's largest mineral spring. The incredibly clear water opens up an intriguing portal to the action below the surface. Depths down to 40 feet can be easily observed from the raft. The Sceney Wildlife Refuge, Indian Lake, the Solshoy Lighthouse, the Fayette Historic Town Site, and others are all within an hour's drive. Manistique has become an exciting year-round destination for lovers of the great outdoors and all the adventures it can bring.
Along the shores of northern Lake Michigan, located in a secluded bay called Snail Shell Harbor, is the Fayette State Park and Town Site. Located just south of US 2 on the Garden Peninsula, it's about a 40-minute drive from here in Manistique. This unique ghost town is the remains of an old iron smelting town that's long since been deserted. The old restored buildings and its picturesque location make it a great place to take a picnic lunch and spend the whole day exploring. It's a fun adventure for the entire family.
We've shown you Fayette Town Site on previous programs, but if you still haven't had a chance to see it for yourself, you're missing a truly special experience. This 19th century iron smelting town has 18 surviving buildings and the ruins of its furnace complex. Museum exhibits and a 26-station walking tour interpret the industrial significance of the site, once owned by the Jackson Iron Company, as well as a life in a company town in the late 1800s.
Fayette's period of significance began in 1867 when the Jackson Iron Company began operations at Fayette. Fayette was named after Fayette Brown, who was the general manager for the Jackson Iron Company out of Negaunee. Fayette was chosen for a couple of reasons. One being close proximity to hardwoods, which is a major component in the iron manufacturing process. It was also chosen because it was an easy transportation route from iron ore that came from the Negaunee mines to Escanaba via train and then by barge to Fayette, and an ample supply of limestone, which was a flux in the iron-making process. Fayette was in operation from 1867 through 1891, and during that time was the second largest iron producer in the Upper Peninsula. What you have is probably one of the most intact iron industry company towns in the United States. It's listed on the National Register of Historic Places, and it represents a company town that was both an industrial site, a commercial environment, and a residential area for the more than 500 people that lived and worked here. This is commonly referred to as the downtown. That might seem kind of odd to people who live in Detroit or or Chicago or other metropolitan areas. But within a self-contained community, this was the hub of commerce, and this is where people met and business transactions took place, where you were paid, where you met friends, where if you were visiting Fayette, you'd stay. So there really was an intrinsic sense of community here at Fayette. This is the only place like this in the Midwest, and one of two in the nation, that still remain and still can give a visitor, a sense of what it was like, what a company, a town appeared like in the latter part of the 19th century. Fayette was part of that foothold that Michigan had in the Industrial Revolution, the era of robber barons and the transition from an agricultural society to an industrial society. So Fayette's more than just this quaint environment of wood frame buildings and stone buildings on the tip of the Garden Peninsula and the Upper Peninsula. It's really a major site within the context of American industrialization, especially in the context of the Midwest.
For many people, northern Michigan gives the impression of being in a time warp. This is because the quaint little towns and cities are often a blending of old and new, and nowhere is that more evident than on Mackinac Island.
The magic of Mackinac Island seems to capture the fancy of everyone, young and old, and there's little wonder why. Steeped in history, Mackinac Island has been here through it all. Periods of Indian unrest, political turmoil and revolution, and yet what remains is a place of beauty, a place where history is not forgotten. There is still evidence of French and English influence, and yet this magnificent island is uniquely American. By the second half of the 19th century, the island's moderate climate and pollen-free environment, along with its historical sites, began attracting ever larger groups of social visitors. Once the United States' second national park, Mackinac Island was given to the state of Michigan in 1895 when it became Michigan's first state park. Today, between 800,000 and 1 million visitors visit the 2,200-acre island annually to see the beautiful Victorian architecture, historical sites, or to just see the island's natural beauty.
Well, the first thing, when you step off the ferry, and then in any one of the three ferry lines, they're very ample service, instantly you're in another world. You step off, you're confused. It's sunny like it is. The air is so clear here that you've got to adjust your cameras down in order to get a good picture. It's pure air. We're out in the water here, and you step off onto a street that has no traffic, no cars, and there's a flow of vitality. There's carriages and bicycles and kids and people and some dogs and everything that should be in America. And it's all here, and everybody's just sort of stunned. They walk around. It takes them a while to get acclimated to it. We don't offer an abundance of high-tech services, VCRs, and as a matter of fact, you're lucky to get a newspaper here, or to see a newscast on television. We'd like you to forget that and just sort of enjoy being alive here. And that's our whole pitch. We don't have anything we're selling. Everybody is coming here creating their own experience.
A visit to the island wouldn't be complete without a taste of some of the delicious homemade fudge found here. Who can resist the sweet smells of hot sugar and cocoa as the fudge is spread out on slabs of marble to cool? As you watch the artisan trowel the hot fudge around, it's hard to resist the temptation to jump in. Depending on how much fudge you've eaten, you may want to walk down the 700-foot veranda of the stately Grand Hotel. This elegant hotel is one of the world's finest and has been featured in the film Somewhere in Time, starring Christopher Reeve and Jane Seymour. In early June, Mackinac Island puts on its showy and fragrant Lilac Festival. Lilacs were introduced to Mackinac Island in the 1600s by French missionaries. Whether you make the Lilac Festival or not, the island is always abloom with flowers in the summertime. Displays of spring tulips at the Grand Hotel are particularly spectacular. Travel another 10 minutes west and you'll experience the wild at Garland Zoological Park, a child-friendly zoo set among stands of mature birch and pine. You'll experience black bear, wolf, cougar, otter, wallaby, camel, reindeer, white-tailed deer, and more, all in a natural park-like setting. Included in the park are feeding and petting areas featuring traditional and exotic animals the kids will love. Also located in the park, you'll find Souvenirs Gift Shop features safari limited collectibles, dinosaur and wildlife replicas, rocks, minerals and fossils, and science, nature, and wildlife related gifts for all ages.
What may very well be one of the best-known waterfalls in the Midwest is within an easy drive of Manistique. Tahquamenon Falls is the second largest waterfall east of the Mississippi. Found within one of Michigan's largest state parks, it's an interesting and beautiful area of the state.
Tahquamenon Falls State Park is hidden among the rolling pine-covered hills along the shores of Lake Superior's Whitefish Bay. Running through the park is the Tahquamenon River, a meandering, tree-lined waterway made famous by Longfellow as the riverbanks where Hiawatha built his canoe. Legends aside, the Tahquamenon River is best known for the Tahquamenon Falls, the second largest waterfall east of the Mississippi River. At the heart of the park, the river gains speed before thundering over a stone ledge some 200 feet wide and 50 feet high. Wispy plumes of mist rise from the depths of the river and disappear into the surrounding forest. Below the falls, the deep canyon of layered sandstone harnesses the river once again before reaching the lower falls several miles downstream. Downstream from the upper falls, the Tahquamenon River splits to flow around a small rocky island while dropping 20 feet to form the lower falls. For a close-up look at these falls, rent a rowboat and row over to the island and walk the trails that circle its edge. Notice the deep tea-colored water, the result of tannic acid leaching from fallen leaves and pine needles along the river's twisting course. After spending time at the falls, continue just a few minutes north to Paradise and the Whitefish Point Light Station. It has been named one of the 10 best places to see the light by USA Today and one of the best small museums in America by Money Magazine. The Whitefish Point Light is the oldest active beacon on Lake Superior and is open for guided tours. The 80-foot tower marks the beginning of the infamous Shipwreck Coast and also serves as the centerpiece for the Great Lakes Shipwreck Museum. The museum gallery is a world-class facility featuring dramatic You Are There exhibits and spellbinding stories of shipwrecks from the wreck of the British schooner Invincible in 1816 to the mysterious disappearance of the Edmund Fitzgerald in 1975. The Fitzgerald exhibit features the ship's bell, which was recovered by the museum on behalf of the crew's families in July 1995. The Shipwreck Theater, also located on site, features an inspiring film on the bell's recovery. Stop in the U.S. Coast Guard lifeboat house that holds artifacts and stories of the heroic surfmen. Find your experience with a breathtaking stroll on the boardwalk to Lake Superior's Shipwreck Coast or a visit to our Shipwreck Coast Museum store filled with unique nautical gifts. The Shipwreck Museum and Whitefish Point Light Station are open 10 to 6 daily from mid-May through mid-October.
Well, we certainly are visiting a lot of nice places today. Oh, and one more thing before we get back to the show. While you're in our website, don't forget to sign our guest book and pass on any of your recommendations to the other people who follow our show. Michigan's North Country really shows its true colors when you visit the Pictured Rocks National Lakeshore Park in Munising. This one-of-a-kind national park has breathtaking scenery along its sculptured sandstone cliffs, remote sandy beaches, and magnificent waterfalls. The nice thing about this park is it can be as simple as a car ride or a boat ride, or as extensive as a backpacking trip through the woods. Best part is, the choice is yours.
This 40-mile-long stretch of land and sea is one of the Midwest's most popular attractions. For the best view of the cliffs, take the Pictured Rocks boat tour. The tour boat makes a 37-mile round-trip circuit that will give you unparalleled views of the sandstone cliffs. In fact, from the cruise boat, you'll see a part of the Pictured Rocks that is otherwise just not possible. The first rock formation you'll see is also the most famous, known as Miner's Castle. This huge monolith is as tall as a 9-story building. The name originates from 2 sources: Miner, from the name of the people who donated the land to the state, and Castle, which depicts the twin towers, which gives it its castle-like appearance. At Grand Portal Point is a rookery, a place where gulls nest among the cliffs. The colors of the cliffs camouflage their young from the sharp eyes of eagles and falcons who prey on them. Other places along the way have been carved into fascinating sculptures, such as the broken flower vase. Here, a tree stands on a small island once connected to the mainland by a rock bridge. Further along, you'll see an extraordinary rock grouping shaped like barrels. When storms blow across Lake Superior, huge waves slam against them, making the sound of beating drums. It is for that reason they are suitably called the Indian drums. Like its neighbor, Grand Island, you'll see waterfalls cascading over the side of the cliffs. Many of these are created by spring runoff and will disappear by midsummer, while others drain the small inland lakes and wet areas found within the park's boundaries. One of our own favorite activities in the Pictured Rocks has been canoeing on the Beaver Lakes. After a rough ride down an unimproved road, we finally arrived at our destination and unloaded the canoe, and were we ever glad we did. Maybe it was because we had the area all to ourselves, or maybe it was just the spectacular setting the Beaver Lakes provided. But we enjoyed our stay here as much as any in recent memory.
We've got out on the lake. We were over on Little Beaver Lake, and we moved around some of the sides of the lake. We moved back into a cove, and then you see the fish swirl back in there. We made a few casts. I had it on long enough to get it to the boat, and it seen the boat even before I seen it. It turned and just snapped my line like it wasn't even there. So we lost that one, moved down the shore, didn't hit anything else, found a little passageway that leads just a tiny river that can't be more than about 50 yards long that leads into Big Beaver Lake, and we're now sitting in Big Beaver Lake. There's supposed to be quite a few different types of fish in here, as the ranger said. So we're gonna just take a little bit of a look at it. He thought it might be rough if the wind was up, but the wind is calm right now. It's just beautiful out here. We got a great sunshiny day. I think one of the things that amazes me about this is that you can't get out here unless you are hiking or unless you bring a canoe like we did from Little Beaver Lake on to Big Beaver Lake. This is just, there's nobody out here. It's just amazing that these things sit out here, and most people don't know that they're here, and a lot of people have never seen it. So it's a great place, and you ought to come up here and take a look at it. Well, grab a picnic lunch and load up the family because it's time to go exploring the Hiawatha National Forest. Found both to the north and the west of Manistique, you can spend the entire day driving through this 250,000 acres of wilderness in search of small lakes, scenic rivers, and wildlife.
Hiawatha is the only U.S. national forest that reaches the shores of 3 Great Lakes. It takes in a huge area, roughly 880,000 acres in the central and eastern part of the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. With Hiawatha's extraordinary location, a vast array of recreational opportunities are available in a spectacular natural setting among great views and interesting historic sites. The Indian River Canoe Trailhead at Fish Lake is approximately 36 miles northwest of Manistique. The Indian River from Fish Lake to Indian Lake, a total of almost 36 miles, offers excellent canoeing. The gentle flow of the river, combined with its scenic beauty, will impress any canoeist. A 1- or 2-day trip will take you deep into the Hiawatha National Forest, where you'll drift past northern hardwoods, mixed conifers, rolling hills, and marshland swamps. The average width of the Indian River is 30 to 50 feet, and it has an average depth of 1 to 3 feet.
This is kind of neat. Looks like an old railroad bridge in here. Probably built for the logging days. Sneak through there. Just never know what you're going to find on some of these rivers like this. Pretty neat stuff. Doesn't seem to be anybody to tell you about things like this either. You just have to kind of find them out for yourself.
Well, we found ourselves a little stream here. We are in Schoolcraft County, not far from Indian Lake off of County Road 437. And that's as much as you're going to get from me, because brook trout are very special. They live in very special environments, and half the fun of finding them is finding your own creek. So whether you're here in Schoolcraft County or close to where I live in the Sioux, find a creek, find some brook trout, and you'll just have a blast. There he is. Nice fish. Mike, I'm not lying, man. Boy, is this a pretty fish. Holy cow. Out of a small stream like this, oh my Lord. I saw him come up and grab it. Get over the log, buddy. I'm only using 2-pound test for a leader. Oh my Lord. Oh Lord. I haven't caught a brook trout like this all summer long. Oh my Lord. You know, Robert Traver, who's really John Volker, said that he doesn't fish for trout, for the trout, but for the environs in which they live. I gotta ask you, does it get any better than that? Oh my Lord. Oh my Lord.
As the 19th century poet Longfellow put it in Song of Hiawatha, from the forests and the prairies, from the great lakes of the Northland, from the land of the Ojibways, from the land of the Dakotas, from the mountains, moors, and fenlands where the heron, the shushuga, feeds among the reeds and rushes. Pretty good description of the poem's namesake, the Hiawatha National Forest.
Unfortunately, all good things must come to an end. But before we go, I'd like to give you a little more information so that you can have a great getaway, just like we did. If you're thinking a trip to this week's Great Getaways in your future, you can look up everything you've seen on today's show by going to greatgetaways.tv. Well, it's kind of hard to believe that there's so much to see and so much to do this close to Manistique. But as you've seen today, there is. I guess really the hardest part with something like this is trying to decide when you want to do what. Oh boy, don't you wish all life's decisions were that difficult. There you have it, day trips from Manistique, a great way to spend a family vacation. And now my chores are done, my fishing equipment's ready. I think you know where I'm going to be. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.